Hi, my name is Jared, and I'll be presenting the conservation of the Acuńa cactus. So cactus species in general are of particular interest to people just because of their peculiar looks. I'm sure many of you have seen them in the store and might even own a few. I myself have a ghost plant sitting on my windowsill right now. The Acuńa cactus belongs to the Cactaceae family, which not only has a large number of species involved in it, but also has a prevalence for narrow endemism, meaning they can only be found in a certain area. The genus and species is Echinomonas rectocentris acuñensis, and this species has a single plump stem, as you can see right here. Grows about to 6 inches tall, so it's not that big. It has these flowers on top that can range from pinkish color to purple. There are also 2 to 3 central spines, as you can see in this picture right here, that come out. And then they have around 12 radial spines that come around. Since 2013, the species has been listed as endangered under the Endangered Species Act in the US. So the Acuńa cactus occurs in habitats that are isolated at the top of small granite knolls and mesas. They also typically have a cobble or gravel substrate. However, while there might be a lot of this habitat available, they don't inhabit all this habitat. So in addition to being protected under the Invasive Species Act as endangered, they also have a critical habitat involved in them as well, protecting habitats that are available for them. Some plants that are associated with the cactus are creosote bush, spur sage, and wild buckwheat. And these are just a few that are involved with it. So there are about 5 populations in Arizona and 1 population in northern Sonora, Mexico, not Mexico. Let's get the next slide. I'll show you a circle right here. So populations are around in this area, northern Sonora, southern Arizona. You can see it's located right along the border, which will be important to know in a few slides, which I'll explain. So invasive species, particularly, are a danger everywhere, no matter where you are. There's invasive species by us, out west, down south, up north, and even in the desert. Now, non-native and invasive species are 2 different things. Non-natives, while there are an introduced species that's not from that area, it doesn't cause any ecological damage. And it really doesn't do a whole lot being there. While an invasive species, when introduced, can cause ecological damage as well as economic. So think of Japanese knotweed. Comes in, it spreads rapidly, it outcompetes the native species, decreases biodiversity of that area. Overall, not good for the environment. Take this into account for the Acuńa cactus. You have invasive species that come in, it's outcompeting the Acuńa cactus, furthermore pushing the populations into a decreased state more and more. Another reason for population decline would be climate change. So cactus species have simply evolved to live in arid climates. That's where they've always been. They live in hot weather, little rainfall, and it's how they've evolutionarily come to adapt to it. They have modified leaves, and they have a thick cuticle for retaining water. And with the increased climate temperatures and reduced rainfall predicted, it's likely that we'll see a decrease in succulent species over time. While they're adapted to hot weather and hot temperatures, they can only tolerate so much. So even if it gets too hot for them, they will not be able to survive. Another thing to think about is immigration, something people probably don't think about much when you think about conservation. So as I showed you before in slide 5, you could see that their populations were located between southern Arizona and northern Mexico, and you saw that the border was right in the middle of that. So these borderlands contain critical habitats for the Acuńa cactus, which is damaged by both border patrol and immigration alike. In 2004, the National Parks Association ranked the Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument to be one of America's top 10 endangered parks. And this was because of 200,000 undocumented immigrants coming across there every year. And as they come across, they're causing damage to the plant life, the animals, any historical artifacts that are in the area. And the degradation's only been increased because of Border Patrol through their actions. So, construction of roads, building of walls, patrols done off-road by vehicles, low-flying helicopters. All this travel and disruption of the habitats is not good for the Acuña cactus species, and not good for many other species either. Here's a graph that just shows you a depiction of the population numbers over time. So you can see in the 1990s, about when it starts, but before that. The increase here was not explained in the paper that I got this from. However, soon after the increase, you can see that the population starts to decline more and more until you come from what was at over 400 to in 2010 looks to be around maybe 50 or 40. So conservation methods. First one I'll talk about is an in situ method, which involves a method of maintaining or breeding populations of plant or animal species in their native area. So a study was done about cactus nurseries and conservations in a biosphere reserve in Mexico. And it was done by Maria T. Pulido and Consuela Cervez Cardona. And they were looking into what was being done at a nursery as well as how it was affecting the conservation of cactus species present. So in total, the nurseries, there's 3 of them, and they had 22 different species, with 6 of them being under the endangered species list. It's also to note that all these species are cactuses. So all 3 of the nurseries had managers, and each of these managers had received support from their reserve administrations to attend courses that went over how the cactus is supposed to be cared for, their production methods, germination, and as well as marketing, which this great understanding of the overall care and biology of the cactus species in their possession is a great advantage for successfully performing correct conservation methods for them. It was also found that the public better understood that the extraction of these cactus plants was a federal crime and began reporting them, mostly because they were able to identify them much easier. They knew what they looked like, they knew they were endangered. So they didn't have any kind of, well, I shouldn't say they didn't have, they had less activities of people accidentally harming these endangered plants or accidentally buying them from somebody where they were legally harvested. So another technique is ex situ, which involves maintaining or breeding populations of plants and animal species in non-native areas. So think of a botanical garden. In these gardens, you have many different kinds of plants, some of which can be the Acuña cactus. And with the availability of these species in a botanical garden, it takes away the need for traveling all the way to Arizona, hiking out into these remote areas, and possibly disrupting their native habitats in order to take samples or study them. Instead, you can go to these botanical gardens, you can take your samples that you need. It allows for easier study of these remote species plants, as well as avoiding the damage of their habitats any further. Here is the photo citations, just papers that I got a few things from, as well as some links to the photos that I used. Thank you.